This is reposted.
One of my favorite things about you, Larry, is you play the Pacheco nuts, the 8-6 offsuit. You take big risks, which I think applies to our idea today. It comes from John F. Kennedy. He says, there are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. I think you don't like to bet on a sure thing. You like the long shot. Your favorite hand is 8-6 offsuit, which people that don't play poker is arguably not a good hand to play. But one of my favorite memories, not of you, just of life, is you winning the Pacheco nuts and doing a dance for about 3 minutes. Pacheco nuts, Pacheco nuts. What do you think about Kennedy?
You know, I mean, once again, I am Enneagram 7, which I've only recently figured out in my life, and I value experiences
Mm-hmm.
and stories, and you can't have experiences and stories if you play it safe. Like
No.
in life, if you just don't take chances and watch TV every night, you don't gather stories. So my thing about taking chances is just it's part of who I am because I'm always wanting to tell fun stories of walking down the strip in Reno in the middle of the night. Like I have to do that, but I also have to realize that not everybody's wired that way. That's my main problem. I have to convince people it's worth doing a story to do it, and a lot of times they don't.
Yeah, I think some of the best memories I have are when things were either spontaneous or when plans went wrong. Like I have a memory of a friend, they drove to visit me in Colorado from Texas. And in Texas, you generally don't put antifreeze washer fluid in your car. And we were driving down the highway and it starts snowing and my friend tries to do the wipers and it just blurs out because it's frozen. So we're driving down the highway with his head out the window. And I don't know if that was a risk, but it's like when things go wrong, like it's you have better stories. Like if you play it safe and you show up and everything goes exactly to plan, what what's the point?
Yeah, and I think risk takers work the best when they have a solid um, co-person that doesn't take risks. Like for instance, my marriage works because I'm the crazy idea guy,
Yeah.
and my wife's the solid like, hey, let's just pound this out and work out the details of your 50th birthday party that's going to be across 5 nations in a kind of weird thing. Like, no, I'm just making
Yeah.
that up. But I mean, it really takes. It, some people hear this go like, oh, I want to be a risk taker. Well, if it's not who you are, be who you are, and you can complement those that are. That's sort of the thing. We do need risk takers. Like, there's no America theoretically if Christopher Columbus doesn't decide to sail across the West. There's no if JFK doesn't decide to put all this money and make a land on the moon. Maybe America's not the first country to land on the moon. It takes all types of people to either support the risk takers or not.
Right. I think also everyone does have a different comfort level with risk, but I mean, you can even take a risk on trying a new menu item at a restaurant and it could pay off.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to quit your job to take a risk. Like just identify things in life that you can do, right? So like I don't know how you ended up in San Francisco, but presumably a risk was taken to move there.
Absolutely. I had grew up with my best friends that I'd known from third grade. We were all living in a house together in Long Beach, and I just some sense in me was like, I gotta go. I gotta go, leave, and become a different person. And I left everybody. I thought I would never have friends again. I'd move to the Bay Area and just be lonely.
Wow.
And it was like the best decision I ever made in my life. But it was a big risk.
Yeah. And I guess inherently taking a risk puts yourself in an uncomfortable situation, which I mean the second part of this quote, long range risks of comfortable inaction. I mean, the opposite is uncomfortable action. Just I say it so many times that anything worthwhile is uncomfortable. Like you're gonna look back on it at the end. It's gonna make you feel the happiness more deeply because you were uncomfortable or went through struggle to achieve what you wanted. Delayed gratification.
Yeah, and that's hard if you're just really set in watching Netflix every night of the week, coming home and not having new experiences. I know lots of those people, and
I
they're
mean, yeah, that's hard, but knock it off. Like you're going to be more uncomfortable and you're going to feel the highs even more because it's going to be terrible.
My favorite story of risk, I just love this one, is Elon Musk.
Mm.
He's got the Tesla in production. He'd made all his money in PayPal, and then he decides to make an electric car. And the electric car, he can't get the production line going, right? He can't get it. So he's hemorrhaging all his money. He's borrowed all his money. He started a rocket company at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And 3 rockets don't launch, and he's about to lose everything. Then I think it's like on his 4th rocket launch, it takes off. And money comes into the rocket company. Then he could pay off the debt for the Tesla company. I mean, he was like, if this rocket doesn't launch, we don't have the Tesla car and we don't have SpaceX. It's like this great idea. He's kind of crazy, but I loved his risk idea.
Yeah, I think the real life application of that is Larry at 3 a.m. in Reno making a 12-way parlay bet.
Hey, not everybody has the stones for that, Andrew.
They don't. But
the last thing, you started us off with the Pacheco nuts. The Pacheco nuts is, as you mentioned, a 6-8 offsuit hand played down in poker. And the first time I was playing poker with these group of guys, they wouldn't tell me I got the Pacheco nuts, and nobody would ever tell me what it was. And this is before Google, so that you could Google it. So for years, I didn't know what they were saying, what this hand was, the Pacheco nuts.
Yeah.
And it was only when we went to a card room in Livermore randomly at 3 a.m, I asked the guy next to me, like, hey, what's the Pacheco nuts? And he tells me, and I just start dancing around in a card room in Livermore. I'm like, I know what the Pacheco nuts is. Yeah.
Yeah. So one last thing for everybody listening, if you're driving, wait to do this till later, but you can go to IMDb. You can look up the Pacheco nuts. It's the first short film I was ever in, directed by Kirk Peterson, starring Larry Roberts. And it's many things, but I was going to circle back and say, if you're not taking any risks, stop it. Do something that makes you uncomfortable, whether it's going on a walk that's 10 minutes longer than you're going to normally do, or order something to try a different food today. Like you're going to enjoy having done it.
Eat a spicy jalapeno.
One more tip. If you roast a jalapeno, it becomes so much spicier. So be careful if you do that, because it gets out of the seeds and gets into the skin. I digress. Guys, if you have a post you would like us to further explore, please reach out. You can find us at Reposted Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I'm Andrew Keller for the 6-8 Offsuit saying, thanks for stopping by.
The nuts!